Today, I want to share a super exciting plot with everyone. The male protagonist actually kneels in the icy garden for a long time, just to ask for the female protagonist's forgiveness. The female protagonist is torn between anger and heartache, unsure how to face this man who once hurt her but still loves her deeply. This intense emotional conflict and contrast has made readers worry about their love story and made me eager to know what will happen next. Chapter 40. A sudden growl echoing from the shadowy depths of the forest sent a shiver of fear down my spine. I gasped and instinctively recoiled from the massive form emerging from the trees, its silhouette barely visible in the moonlight. "Don't worry." 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬's soothing voice instantly calmed the terror coursing through me. His arm wrapped protectively around my waist, drawing me against his sturdy frame. "I would never let anything harm you. Besides," he began softly, gently releasing me to approach the imposing figure. "He's an old friend." I remained rooted to the spot, my eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination as I watched the wolf, its fur so dark it seemed to absorb the moonlight, approach the god of the moon's outstretched hand. "It has been a while." 𝐾𝐥𝐬𝐬. 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬 spoke softly to the creature, his tone warm with familiarity. Despite his reassuring words and the way the animal sniffed at his hand before allowing 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬 to gently stroke its furry head, I couldn't shake my unease. My mortal memories of this realm were hazy at best, but I knew wolves were feared creatures, massive beasts capable of dealing death with a single swipe of their claws or snap of their powerful jaws. It was the reason no one dared venture into the colder, wilder parts of the world. "Immerse. Come," 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬 urged gently. His free hand extended towards me while the other rested atop the wolf's head. The creature was enormous, its head reaching the middle of 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬's chest. It was as large as I was. I hesitated, my throat constricting as I tried to swallow my nervousness. I trusted the god implicitly, but the wolf looked as if it could devour me in a single bite. "He will not hurt you, my dear one," 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬 encouraged again, his hand still patiently outstretched. I gulped once more before taking slow, tentative steps towards the pair. My hand slipped easily into his strong fingers enveloping mine as he pulled me back into the safety of his embrace. The wolf's bright eyes remained fixed on me, narrowed slightly as the immortal guided me closer. 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬 took my hand, despite my reluctance, and held it out between us and the wild beast. The wolf sniffed my hand, much as it had done with 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬, before lowering its head in a gesture of acceptance. "𝐻GS letting you pet him," 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬 murmured in my ear, gently nudging me closer to the wolf. Slowly, I withdrew my hand from his end. With great care, allowed my fingers to brush along the top of the creature's furry head, marveling at the softness of its coat, the unexpected gentleness of this formidable beast. It made a harsh noise in the back of its throat, one that made my movements still immediately, but 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬 only chuckled. "He is a little rough around the edges but means no harm." I let my touch run softly over the wolf's head, his warm fur tickling the pads of my fingers. He made another sound, but it was closer to a purr than anything else. A smile started to pull on my lips. "Does he have a name?" I asked 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 as the wolf lowered its head, so I could pet down his strong neck. I didn't miss the pleased gleam in the god's eyes, or how he slowly loosened his arm from around me, but I did not mind. He is a wild animal, free in the world and ruler of the mountain. To name him would demoralize him. I could hear the however hanging at the end of his statement, and I turned my head just enough for those bright blue eyes to see my raised eyebrow. He shot me that half smirk he loved so much and let his own hand once again run along the creature's dark fur. The wolf raised his large head once again. His pointed ears stood straight to interpret all sounds around us. He stood strong and proud against the darkness of the forest. The light of the full moon reflected brightly off those unearthly golden eyes. I call him Eric. MPMRE. Soft fingers gently brushed away the dark hair covering my face. I groaned and tried to turn away from the touch, but my body had no room to move. "Wake up, my lady." It was a struggle to blink my eyes open, to move, but that voice would not leave me be. Bright, Gold eyes were staring down at me in concern, and the worry on their owner's face was unfamiliar to me. I could only stare up at him, my body numb though my heart ached. "Are you hurt?" he asked after a tense moment of silence. I did not respond, even though my neck ached from resting against the hard edge so long and I was incredibly weak from the massive outburst of power. "My lady," he urged again, his hand wavering uncertainly over my hair. My own hand slowly lifted from my lap until the tips of my fingers could just barely brush over his gruff cheek. His bright eyes widened at the action, but he did not pull away as I expected. "I know you." My voice was scratchy and hoarse as it passed my dry tongue, though the widening of his gaze indicated he heard. "I remember you." He was silent, his large body unmoving as those eyes stared holes into my gaze. Then he slowly, carefully, lifted his hand away from me and covered the one I had pressed to his cheek. His eyes closed. He let out a shaky breath, then pressed his face into my small palm. "I am sorry, 𝐸. I am so incredibly sorry." The complete and total remorse in his voice surprised me, but I was too tired to let it show. He practically cradled my hand between his and his cheek. "He has lied about everything." My mood instantly darkened, though I was far too exhausted for another outburst. Tariq's eyes shot open, his grip easing as I laid back once again. "They were not lies. Do not defend him." His eyes flashed, but he did not continue, and for that I was grateful. "Why did you not tell me?" I murmured as he squeezed my hand tightly one last time before letting me return it to my lap. His gaze flickered away uneasily, his tongue wetting his lips before he let out a heavy sigh. "I did not know you at first. I did not remember you." He started softly, his tone as sad as the look haunting his golden eyes. "Centuries had passed since the last I saw you, and all I knew was the bitter depression the loss of my maid caused." He paused, his gaze sweeping over my pale and exhausted face. It was weeks before I finally remembered, and by then North had remembered too. "Please, let me take you from here. My lady, you need proper rest." I was not used to this concerned behavior of his, or the desperate plea in his voice. It was unnerving. I let out a small sigh and turned from his as best as I could, although it was hard to move in such a cramped space. "I am fine here. You are in a washtub, and the room is destroyed. You need rest somewhere more suitable." I did not answer him at first. I didn't want to leave and risk running into that traitor. I hadn't meant to destroy the room, had not meant to cause such chaos, but I had been furious and the power inside of me raged. But 𝐾𝐜𝐤 only left when it had exploded from my being and realized I would not calm down until he did. Despite my screams for him to leave me be sooner. That must have been hours ago, and he has not bothered me since, that I was aware of at least. I had been so tired. The power had used every ounce of my energy. I climbed into the only part of the chamber that had not been destroyed and fell instantly to sleep. The last thing I wanted was to face that man. I hated him. I do not wish to see him. I murmured against the cool stone of the tub, quietly enjoying the reassuring hand Tariq rested on my back. "Then you do not have to. I only want to take you somewhere to sleep properly." He hesitated when I still did not agree, or look at him, and he let out another sigh. "Please Immerse. The stress you have been through the past couple of days is beyond unhealthy. Let me take you somewhere else." I paused another moment, weighing the pros of his suggestion, before deciding they outweighed the cons. I turned away from the side of the tub and gave him a soft nod. The relieved sigh that passed his lips did not go unnoticed by me, and he did not hesitate to reach into the washtub and lift me effortlessly. I let him carry me swiftly, but gently from the destroyed, debris-laden room and out into the silent hall. I was too tired to lift my head from his strong shoulder. "You knew. On the ship back from the lower kingdom. You remembered who I was." Our past conversations flew easily across my mind's eyes. Tariq exclaiming the king had once searched for his mate. About him being far older than one could imagine. He had known. I was starting to. "Yes, would you have told me if he had let you?" I whispered softly as he carried me away from the northwest destroyed chambers, and the hall entirely. His body tensed, and he did not answer for a few long seconds before those gold eyes flashed down to me. It was never my place to tell you, and I had faith in Northwest's decisions, regardless of what you think of him at the moment. He has only done what he thought was necessary to keep you safe. He has been with others. 𝐿𝐢𝐬. There was no mistaking the absolutely betrayal and hurt in my voice, and I didn't bother trying to hide it. What love could two people ever hold when the original had been so corrupted? That was a very long time ago. We had been together in the heavens. He knew me. He did not remember you. 𝐸𝐴. I was far too tired to hold anything besides hurt in my heart. But that one emotion flared the further our conversation progressed. I never forgot him, or my feelings for him at least. You were asleep under the mountain for hundreds of years. You did not have the chance to forget. Though his voice was firm and offered little room for argument, it held no anger, and he did not snap at me like usual. He stopped looking for me. No, never. I scoffed at that and rolled my eyes despite the water threatening to fall from them once again. But he ignored the sound and continued to carry me through the castle. He never stopped searching. He created the generals to help him, built this place so you would have a home. Even when he forgot he was a god, forgot his true reasoning for being on this realm, forgot why he was searching, he refused to stop, refused to let us stop. I didn't want to listen anymore. Didn't want to hold this conversation anymore. I just wanted to close my eyes, to sleep, to forget. We were silent after that, neither of us bothering to evoke any more turmoil inside my being. Why do you not take me to my room? I asked softly as he ascended the grand staircase to a hall I had not seen before. North is there. I did not have a response to that. The room he took me to was smaller than any other I had stayed in before, but the bed and washroom it held was beyond inviting. You should wash and change. My lady. He started softly as he sat me down on the edge of the bed. You will feel better once you do. I will have someone bring food up for you. Then you must sleep. I could only nod as he pulled away and gave me a soft smile. There is already hot water in the tub and a gown on the counter. I will be back shortly to check on you. 𝐿𝐢𝐬. I started as he turned for the door. He paused and glanced back over his shoulder, those golden eyes soft. Thank you. He smiled, a small one, but smiled still. Of course. My lady. He gave me a small bow before leaving quietly out the small door. I sighed as it closed behind him and glanced longingly at the washroom. Yes, a warm bath would do nicely, 𝐿𝐸𝐬. North left me alone for 3 days. Even if it was only because I demanded 𝐿𝐸𝐬 𝐸𝐻𝐸 not let him near. I did not care to hear his excuses, his lies, despite what 𝐿𝐸𝐬 had said. He should have told me from the beginning. Somehow, to keep me isolated like a prisoner for all those months, to keep me in the dark for so long, was beyond cruel. He was not the man I had fallen in love with. 𝐿𝐸𝐬 followed slowly behind me as I walked through the once-ice-ridden garden. Snow still covered the ground, though it was much thinner than the winters. He wishes to speak with you. The large general spoke softly as I let my fingertips run carefully over the beautiful winter flowers before us. I do not care. He let out one long, tired, drawn-out sigh before running a heavy hand down his face. I felt bad for the wolf born. I truly did. I hadn't really let him leave my side during the past few days, and it was starting to exhaust him. Immerse. You cannot continue to put the both of you through this. It is only causing more harm than necessary. I can, and I will. My God's woman, he finally snapped, his golden eyes flashing in the afternoon sun. You are more of a nuisance than ever. Despite his harsh words, I felt a small smile pull on my lip. Annoying him had become one of my favorite things to do lately. 𝐿𝐸𝐬. Leave. The brief moment of content I had found myself in completely disappeared as his voice filled the garden. I turned enough to see 𝐿𝐸𝐬 glance between North and I, and certainly before giving his god a small bow. I will be just inside, if she needs me. The words were spoken for North alone, though they did offer me some comfort. The king snapped hard. blue eyes to his original wolf, born before turning back to me. He did not respond. I stood in stock-still silence as I hopelessly watched her leave, then turned back to the winter flowers. We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. Then you will listen. There is nothing you can say that I wish to hear. He let out a dark growl, and I watched him run a heavy hand through his already disheveled hair out of the corner of my eye. I have given you the space you demanded. Against my better judgment. It is time you listen to what I have to say. I walked away from the winter flowers. And him. Snow began to fall slowly from the sky as I eased down the garden's path, trying to put as much distance between the two of us as possible. Of course, he followed. Continue to ignore me all you want, but you will listen to me. Immerse. He was only a few steps behind me, and the proximity made the hairs on the back of my neck stand straight. I hurried my pace through the garden. We should have talked at the beginning of this whole disaster. Not because some seer and his demons revealed the truth. I should have kept my thoughts to myself. He had done so easily for months. It angered me that I could not control my own. He was quiet a moment as he still followed barely a few steps behind me, before he let out a small sigh. It had not been the right time then. I scoffed and rolled my eyes, though I tried to keep the anger at bay by brushing my fingers softly over the dozen flower petals surrounding us. He ignored the gruff noise. I could not give you answers when I, myself, had none. You had more than I. He let out another snarl, one that would have normally sent a fearful shiver down my spine. I was too angry and tired for that now. Immerse. Please, stopping walking. I can explain everything if you would just give me the chance. A strong grip suddenly wrapped around my arm and pulled me gently to a stop. My eyes snapped down to the large hand wrapped tightly around my arm before daring to glance into its owner's face. I hated the way those blue eyes made me weak. I have given you 1,000 chances, and all you have done is shun me and push me away. It was hard staying strong, hard making my voice firm when those eyes gazed down at me in a remorse so deep it added onto mine own. But I would not falter. Not this time. My whole existence had been a lie. One he has puppeteered, and nearly the entire time, even in the heavens. I had been perfectly content watching the world below from my place in 𝐾𝐥𝐬𝐬's palace, only stealing hidden glances to the god of the moon's home. He had persuaded me to fall in love with him, poked and prodded, and grabbed at my attention every way possible. I remembered now. Not all of it, but more and more kept flying through my mind. Memories that only made the situation 10 times worse. He had been the one who wanted more. He was the one ensuring my entire soul completely belonged to him. He knew I loved him, knew I needed him. And here he was on the mountain, for hundreds of years, growing numb, built this glorious castle, created his generals, and watched as the wolf-born population grew. He stopped looking for me. Then he slept with others. Tariff's words from the other day were little reprieve to the torment of my mind. 𝐊𝐢𝐳 had betrayed me in every possible way, completely tossed our love away, and left me to rot trapped beneath the mountain. I would never shun you, my little Immerse. His free hand reached up and tried to rest against my cheek, but I flinched away. Those sad blue eyes darkened. I am tired, North, and I am done. Please, leave me alone. I had meant to sound strong and firm, but my voice came out as a desperate whisper. I could feel the anger from before simpering beneath the surface, right next to that undeniable hurt. I just wanted him to go away. I tried to pull away from his grip, but that hand only tightened and pulled me towards him. His bright eyes suddenly flashed, and the blue began to disappear as the remorse from before seeped away to frustration. You will listen to what I have to say, whether you want to or not. There was a dark edge replacing the plea in his voice, one that suggested against disobeying him, but I was in no sort of emotional or mental stability to pay attention. The more frustrated he grew, the angrier I became. The hurt and pain I had been trying so hard to ignore since the gold power destroyed his chambers was building like a tidal wave in my heart. No, I will not. Leave me alone. I snapped. if only to hide the water building behind my eyes, and tried to jerk away from him again. I will not. 𝐴𝐸. Not until this is settled. It is settled. I'm done with this. And I'm done with you. Leave me alone. The gold power had been completely silent since that horrid night, but that did not stop my anger from making me lash out on my own. I pulled uselessly at the grip he had on my arm. Even reached up with my free hand to slap at his, but the monstrous man would not budge. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Immerse. He suddenly growled. The sound darkened, rather angry as it shook through the entire garden. He held on to me with both hands now, their grip tight on my upper arms as I continued to tug viciously against them. Stop it. He snarled and used both of those ginormous hands to pull me against him. Harsh, hot tears of anger threatened to fall down my cheeks as I lost all meaning of the term lady, like I'm thrashed against the large man. He held me in that firm grip for what felt like forever, the entire time with me tugging viciously against his hold, even as his temper spiked, and he started growling and shouting as well. He refused to let go. The grip never hurt though, no matter how impossible it was to break. I don't know how long my mental breakdown lasted, how long I shouted at him to bugger off and that I never wanted to see him again, but it felt like hours. It wasn't until my head started to feel light, and my struggling limbs grew weak, that I stopped trying to fight him. My knees buckled when my fists fell limply at my sides after beating against his chest with all the strength I held. Those hard hands slowly pulled me into his chest, and his annoyingly strong arms cradled me against him. I wanted to push him away and run from the warmth he made me feel, from the love I would always feel for him. He had cursed me, and it would be my end. I felt too weak to fight against him again, and my traitorous heart fluttered at the way he held me, at how his lips brushed softly along my forehead, like it did not realize he had completely betrayed it. North let out a long, tired sigh, one that matched the way I felt as he cradled me tightly to his chest and began to slowly rock us back and forth. I hated it, almost as much as I wished I could hate him. I have never stopped searching for you, not for 500 years. He started softly, his voice a deep baritone I wanted nothing more than to block from my head. I wished I could desperately drill my fingers into my ears and never listen to another word, but he held my hands pinned to his chest as if he knew. Please, North, I do not want to hear it. I begged against his chest, though I knew it was pointless. He refused to leave me be. I built this castle for you, so we had a home once this mess was over with. We could not go back to the heavens. We cannot go back. Not permanently. I knew that when I fell, but none of that mattered if I had you. Liar. His words sounded so sweet, so much like promises of love he once gave me all those centuries ago in his palace on the moon. I didn't want them to persuade me as they once had so easily before, no matter how weak I was when it came to him. I did not lie about the myth of the original wolf born. I truly did give a wolf a piece of my soul. I remember. I grumbled against him and tried to pull weakly away. He would not let me. He did pause though, if only for a moment. Turf told you yes. I hissed. The implied as you should have ringing in my tone. He ignored it and continued his story. When I fell, his mate had just perished. He wished to die himself, but that would never be. He knew when he accepted my gift that he would be forced to live an eternal, immortal life. He will never die as long as that part of my soul lived within him. I flinched away when his fingers reached up to run down my hair. His hand hovered in the air, just a hair's breadth away, before he let it fall to my arm once again. He let out a small sigh. He was the one who convinced me to create the generals. Having 6 other beings searching would be helpful. You had fallen on the mountain. I knew you had. I saw the craters, saw the other stars. You had to be here. But I still went to the lower kingdom, and further for any kind of indication. None of this matters. I grumbled as he paused a moment, my fingers trying to desperately curl into him, though I kept them from doing so. It did not change what happened. It didn't change the fact that he forgot about me. He let out a heavy sigh, and I could just picture those blue eyes flashing in my mind's eye. I just want you to know everything. I just want you to understand. I understand everything just fine. Even a god can forget. I spoke the words with such venom they pained even me. My head began to pound behind my eyes. Don't do that. Immerse. Do not shut me out. He pleaded softly into my ear as I tried to pull away from him, his hands tightening in response. Let me finish, please. If you still want me to leave when I'm done, I will. I did want him to leave, to disappear somewhere where I would never have to see him again lie. But if all it took was a few minutes of listening to gain some peace from the disastrous god, then so be it. Chapter 41. Immortals were never meant to walk this world. We had our own, designed solely for our needs. It changed as we did, conformed to what we wanted, what we craved, the perfect inhabitants for beings who can never age, never die. When the mortals were first created, they too sought home in the heavens, but the realm was too eternal for them, always changing. Mortals do not change. At times they could live for thousands of years alongside us. In others, they would die in a blink of an eye. The eternal kingdom holds secrets far older than I, and it rejects all not born from its creation. Axii unfeared for the mortal's survival. Though created by eternal souls, their shells were nothing more than weak skins. The heavens were no place for the sub-species. No immortal that I am aware of disapproved of the great God's decision to create this world. We had, like the mortals, in a place of eternal time and never-ending change. They entertained us. To be rid of them would end our enjoyment. We could watch them from our home, watch how they lived, thrived, created friendships and love. For most it was fascinating to see a species formed purely out of boredom evolve on their own in a planet they could successfully live a lifetime, then die and move on. But this world was built for mortals just as the heavens formed for us. It is for them. We were never meant to stay here long. Many visited as I have done, walking with their own creations they had added to the realm, but we always returned. We require change, constant, unyielding change to redirect our thoughts and minds. Without it we grow numb, ignorant, forgetful. Although the time here moves, wardrobes adapt, and mortals grow more intelligent. The seasons come and go in the same succession. Night becomes day, rulers rise and fade, and the differences between the mortal's view on good and evil do not. It is maddening to repeat the same thing over and over. To watch the world replay in the same chaotic way for hundreds of years is horrendous, regardless of whether they want to or not. Any immortal spent too long in this realm quite literally loses their mind. We cannot grow old. We cannot die, no matter how hard we try. So we forget to deal with the never-ending repetition. It is not a deliberate choice to make. It is forced upon. We are beings of change. It allows our minds to continue thinking. Without it we are numb. It begins with home, the heavens, its iridescent landscapes, the palace, my moon. It all faded away. I held on to it as long as I could, but no matter how dearly I missed my eternal shelter, I hated the place. The light had fled from it. The thing that made eternity enjoyable had been cast away. The heavens betrayed me. It was easy to forget it. Who I was left a lot harder. I had always been proud, too much for my own good. It bothered you at times. You would roll your eyes and say there was pride, then there was ego. And I could never tell the difference. You were right, but like the rest of my kind I was arrogant. And I didn't care. I was my father's favorite. I had the moon, and I had you. Nothing could have deterred me, even after the war. When I had lost you and half of the other stars in the sky, I was still proud, furious, and vengeful, but proud. It took a lot longer for this place to suck the memory of Adranus from me, of my eternal being. Over time I truly did begin to believe I was merely a king descended from the great god of the moon, from Eric. When I created this kingdom, so you would have a home once I found you. Turif thought of the fable of the king's descendant, that they came from Eric's line, his line. His mate had long since died. My soul inside of him was the only thing keeping him alive. I think a part of him resents me for that, though I know he will never admit to it. My first general and oldest friend has been loyal to me since he was a newborn pup. The part of my soul inside him would know your presence as well as I. Though neither of us had counted on others stealing you first. I had found hundreds of craters, hundreds of other stars 𝐊𝐤𝐳 sent back to the heavens, but not you. Do you know how much that fucking killed me? You were there somewhere on the mountain. I knew you were, but I didn't feel you. Every other fucking star I found, and none of them were you. Still Eric at the time. Turret had suggested I make the other generals. With my soul and more wolves, I could search for more than just the mountain in half the amount of time. But he had no idea how hard it had been to give what I already did. The stone I had created for you, the piece of my heart, held much more than that. I tore a mere sliver of my inner being to create it, and another for him. I feared what would happen if I tore at it anymore, though without you I do not care to exist. He did not need me to create the other. My soul had given him more power than I could have ever imagined. The first had been made, and with his son he easily brought the rest into being. I had honestly been beyond grateful. I was not alone on this forsaken realm any longer. I had more to help me search. And even as time went on, and the others were forced to forget as well, Turret knew how important the search was. I believe 500 years passed by the time I completely forgotten my true self. I only remembered you. How you would watch me when you thought I was not paying attention. How you smiled whenever I amused you. How you blushed every time I made an innuendo. My heart. Looking back on it now, I think my mind held on to you the longest because you were the only thing I truly could not lose. My one sole purpose. But even you began to fade. No matter how hard I tried to hold on, no matter how hard I roared at the sky for your return or spent searching the world, you still slipped from my mind. I could no longer see your smile, your hated cheeks, and I began to question who owned those beautiful amber eyes haunting my dreams. And even those slipped away. And then I was living a mortal existence, with only the assumption that I was descended from 𝐿𝐺 that prevented me from aging. And this incurable desire to search for this thing I could not live without. I no longer knew what that something was, only that I had to find you. I watched my people grow, watched their lives come and go, kept them safe from all who threatened my mountain. I had to, for when I found the thing I was desperately searching for, so it would have a place, so you would have a safe home. I want to roar at the ridiculousness of it now. Trapped beneath my mountain by spells casted from those who dare try to amount to the gods. I know not whether they took my stone from your neck or it fell. Regardless, they were successful in keeping me from you. I took pleasure in killing them. 𝐸. Great, undeniable pleasure. The only part I regret was that you saw me in its aftermath. Even in the heavens I tried to hide such rage from you. I never wanted you to think badly of me. I only wanted you to view me with love and affection. I will never forgive myself that you feel such hatred for me. I know that is not what you want to hear right now. I will go back to the past. I eventually believed I had a destined mate like the rest of my kind and assumed that insane need to search was for them. It has been nearly a millennium since the fall, and I have spent half of it in a numb, placid ignorance. Yes, I was, with other women in that time. There was an emptiness inside of me, this horrendous black hole that would never fill no matter how hard I tried, and I could never figure out why. I thought fucking it away was the answer, but I was entirely wrong. It only made it worse. I know you will never forgive me for this, and I will not ask you to. I swear that if I knew you, and of the life we once shared, I never would have touched another, and for what little comfort it provides. I was never with them more than once and always felt this ridiculous urge to die afterwards. I know why now. Regardless if my mind knew I was betraying you. My heart did, but you have owned it for an eternity, and always will. I am thankful you did not have to suffer the passage of time, as I knowing that I was out there somewhere, completely unable to find me. You did not have to watch civilizations rise and fall, did not have to watch epidemics sweep the world, or observe the consistency as I, despite the turmoil they placed inside your head. You did not have to face the eternal oblivion as I. If I were to appreciate those underlings for anything, it would be that. He paused for the first time since he urged us towards the stone table in the middle of the icy garden and sat across from me. I licked my lips and kept my gaze focused on the gray table's surface. I could feel the electrifying blue of his eyes, staring holes into the top of my head, begging me to look at him, to accept his story, to accept him. Only one question slipped past my lips. Turif has a son. Amp, when did you start to remember? Shortly after I watched you nearly fall from that rooftop. He paused, let out a dark chuckle and shook his head. Seeing you there was a shock to my system, though I still didn't remember. We were walking slowly around the icy garden now. I could no longer sit and listen to such a heart-shattering tale, for that was how it felt to me, nothing more than a story. I knew you were mine. Knew you were supposed to be with me no matter the consequences. That awful, desperate pull to constantly search for something had disappeared. I had finally found my mate, the being I had been so desperately hunting for centuries. Or, you found me. He tried to give me a soft smile, one that touched his bright eyes, but I could not bring myself to return it. He continued softly a moment later, the smile falling from his lips. My birthday celebration was a sick joke between the generals and I, but necessary for the kingdom. They truly believe others came before me, and that I am a descendant of Eric, not their actual god. No one ever questioned that you look exactly like the king before you. I raised an eyebrow at that, but his eyes only flashed. Family traits are strong within wolf-borns. Besides, their loyalty knows no bounds. They do not question me. That I knew better than anyone. It had been a shock to more than the king the first time Turif spoke against, even though I wouldn't say he did. I did not realize when I first saw you. I believed you to be just some underling trying not to fall off a building, and I remember thinking that you were such a stupid little girl, sneaking into my kingdom like you would not be caught. Then I saw your eyes, even from my position on the platform, and I knew that you were supposed to mean the world to me. I could not let anyone hurt you, could not let anyone take you from me. Duck pink tongue darted out and licked his lips, those blue eyes wandering off in a distant memory we both shared. I had hurt my shoulder handling the Northern Raiders earlier that day. It would have healed shortly after you found me, but there you were, sprawled out beneath me, practically begging to help me. I did not beg, and I could not say no to you. Though now I regret ever letting you. The gold power, as you call it, is your soul, meant to heal only 𝐊𝐢, and there you were throwing it about as if it were simple magic. My mind began to heal shortly after you touched my own soul. I made sure you were going to be all right before I returned you to that brainless town leader, though I have no idea why they would let a child run a town. He scoffed at that, and the action nearly made me smile. I believed it was the best option at the time. I was weary of Liberius ever since he entered my castle, but he could speak to the spirit realm, something I had forgotten to do long ago. And a strong king needs that access. But I didn't trust him. I didn't want him to know I had a mate. I had no idea how much deeper the problem ran until later. Movement caught the corner of my eye and I watched as he seemed to unconscious fingers through the ends of my hair. I was caught between wanting to rip away from him and begging him to wrap his arms around me and never let go. I settled for pretending I didn't know what was happening. I started to remember slowly after that. Then far more when you went on that little trip to the lower kingdom. There was no mistaking the sneer in his dark voice as he recounted the incident. The ancient power I had long forgotten began returning to me, and you had begun to see it as well. I needed to know more before I could begin to decide what to do. To remember more. But then you got hurt and died. He paused, his eyes closed, and his jaw locked before he let out a hard sigh. I could not have you far from me any longer. By me, needed to know you were safe in the castle, this place I built for you. I flinched when his strong fingers were suddenly trying to wrap around mine, his eyes staring holes into the side of my head again. I wasn't sure what to do. I wanted to hold his hand, to curl up in those strong, immovable arms and never leave. Perhaps it was my own pride keeping me from doing so. If he truly forgot, against his own will. How could I hold that against him? Then why did my heart hurt so much? I flexed my fingers in his grasp and did not pull away from him, though I didn't hold him back. I could practically feel the remorseful plea streaming from his body. This was killing him. Well, it wasn't any better for me. You lied to me. I hid things from you. Same difference. I did what I believed was the best option at the time. It was all I could do. You did not know of our life together. You believed some fable of a life they had put into your head. You would not believe me if I began to try and explain. His thumb was stoking the back of my hand, his body angling further against mine. I hated the excited chill it sent down my spine. You even denied the truth from that feline shifter. I did what I thought was best for you. Hate me if you want, but I will not take back the decision. I will always do what I think will keep you safe. Ice coughed, anger spiking in my chest, and I jerked my hand from his to put some desperately needed space between us. It is that exact thinking that threw me from the heavens, that forced me to take matters into my own hands and go to the cave, to let 𝐿𝐼𝐸 trick me into speaking with him. You should have told me, you should have trusted me. I told you not to leave the palace while I was gone, but you went out to watch the fucking war. I told you I would tell you everything in time, that I worried about the seer and didn't want you around him, but you ignored me again and did exactly what I asked you not to. If you had trusted me and done as I said, none of this would have happened. Don't you dare blame this on me. My voice was a near screech, the fury in it matching that shining from his eyes. And don't you dare pretend you are not at fault either. I sputtered and clenched my fists furiously at my sides. He was right, partially at least. It was cruel of me to blame this all on him, to take no fault. He did always do what he thought was best for me, even if it didn't go the way either of us wanted. I could not fault him for wanting to protect me, only for keeping things from me. That didn't mean I wanted to admit it. Then as quickly as his fury came, it disappeared, and he was beaming down at me as if he'd just stolen the world's largest, most precious jewel. It only made my anger spike. Why the hell are you smiling like that? You are just as cute when you are furious as when you are flustered. It didn't matter how much more anger his statement caused, because he had started to move as quickly as his mood swings. Don't you dare, I shouted as his arm slipped easily around my waist, his large hand gripping tightly at my hip as he tried to pull me into him. Just like before our conversation had started, I began beating at his ridiculous hard shoulders with tight fists. His face suddenly hardened, I slipping into that once warm smile as the blue of his eyes flashed red. How did he do that? I told you I would leave when I finished speaking if you still wanted me to. And I will, but not for long, 𝐿𝐼𝐸. I lost you once already, and my entire being was lost without you. I will not lose you again, even if you are the one trying to take yourself from me. I won't. You are mine. You belong with me always. My eyes widened as his free hand came up and gripped my chin, dark eyes glaring down into mine. I do not care if you hate me. I will never let you go. His thumb brushed over my bottom lip, his eyes dropping to watch the action, though the icy fire in them did not leave. You would hold me here against my will, I whispered as every single one of my senses was filled with him. His smell, his taste, his touch, it was all driving me mad. Even though I was technically being held against my will in this castle already. I knew now, though, knew who we were. If I constantly demanded to leave, it would crush him. And wouldn't feel so good to me either. His eyes flashed red again, his grip tightening. Are you saying I would have to? Are you claiming to no longer love me? Little star. There was a dark humor in his voice, one that spoke far more than his words ever did. He knew without a doubt I could never truthfully say that, because no matter how long we have been apart, no matter how long we upset, angered, hurt each other, we were always his moon to my night, my star to his darkness. We were eternal. I need time to think. I grumbled, still held tight against him with my head immobile in his grip. I have given you time. 𝐿𝐼𝐸, please. I need this. I did not bother to hide the double meaning in those words, and he had not missed it. He paused, and those red flashing eyes slowly eased back to that blue I loved. Very well. Dear Immerse, I will give you what you ask, he murmured softly against my lips, his just barely a breath away from my own. Then he pulled away, leaving me cold and empty. I still have questions. Then I will answer as best as I can. We were eternal. Chapter 42. You do not need me to give you these answers. You are the... They will come as your memories do. I'm asking now. Just tell me, North. Please. His eyes flickered to mine, a defensive icy guard from before slowly slipping away. He let out a sigh before dragging a heavy hand through his dark hair. The red is the immortal power thrumming through me. It shows when I use it, when the eternal being in me rises. The black is the wolf's, and the blue is my always. I keep it for you. You preferred it the most of all the colors I had ever used. I wouldn't let the flutter that one statement sent through my chest drop my harsh gaze, just because I knew I could never truly and completely leave him. Did not mean I was anywhere near done being furious with him, and the different bodies. I edged away from the hand he raised into the air, his fingers reaching to brush against my cheek. They hesitated between us, that sad look crossing his bright eyes once again. My true form is hard to control in such a world as this. As I have said, it was not made for immortals. We do not belong here. The longer I used it, the harder the madness reigned. Even now it is easier to be like this. This realm accepts me more. Those blue eyes dropped to my hands, the ones I was unconsciously curling and uncurling into fists as this fell back to his side. You can change whatever you want. His eyes flickered back to mine, the bright blue nearly reflecting off the darkness slowly falling around us. He gave me a slow nod. Do you remember everything now? I asked softly as I turned my back to him to walk towards an icy vine wrapping around one of the thick stone pillars of the garden. Not everything. He had followed behind me, his voice coming from only a few feet away. I let my eyes trail the cracks in the ice freely. So broken, yet held together. Much from the eternity before you are missing, but with each day more surfaces. He paused then, his presence like a giant, warm beacon shining behind me. All I needed was you. All I ever needed. You are my change in this world of consistency. I did not answer him. I cowed, though his words rang with truth. I did not want to hear endearing sentiments when my chest ached as it did. Then a thought entered my head, one that sent a shiver down my spine. I cannot die, can I? He's still behind me, his breathing turning to low to hear. Yes, you can, but when a starred eyes, there is no moving on. This life is your afterlife. You just disappear. It was a far more unpleasant reality than I would have thought. If I die again, then that is it. No more mountain. No more wolf-borns. No more him. But you cannot grow old. He added softly, though my mind was still reeling from the completely gone thing. You will not age, and I will never let you die. There was no mistaking the oath ringing through his words, the unyielding promise. It only made my heart even more confused. There was silence between us for a while after that. My eyes glued to the ice, his glued to me. I did not know if Turf was still hanging around the entrance. It felt as if we had been talking for days, much less hours. Immerse, it is getting late. I interrupted the minute that sad sigh passed his lips. I needed to think, to sleep. My mind felt like it had been crammed to its full capacity and would explode at any second. His presence took up whatever little space I had left inside my head. I cowed and began to decipher anything with him around. I would like to go to bed. I murmured and turned slowly around as I felt that stare burn holes into my shoulders. Our eyes met, and that unwavering stare started to begin. But I looked quickly away. I cowed and get lost in him. I refused to. His hands fisted at his sides. A very inhuman growl rose to his throat, until he shook his head and let out a hard exhale. If that is what you want. The words sounded like barrels of lead as they passed his lips, as if they were too heavy to flow easily. 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐷 has taken Tariff's place a while ago. but he will escort you back to your room if you wish." His gaze flickered towards the night sky, his breath leaving in deep pulls. "I will leave you now." He turned to leave, his eyes not once traveling back to mine. I held and helped the jab of pain that shot through my chest, nor thigh. He paused, his body turning just enough to acknowledge me, and waited. I didn't know what to say, did not know why I called to him. Watching him walk away was harder than I could possibly imagine. Silence passed slowly between us before he turned away again. "I prefer it when you call me 𝐴𝐴." His words were soft, but that undeniable emotion ringing their tore at my heart. I watched as he walked out the back entrance of the garden, the one that led to the grassy field on the side of the mountain. My breath came out shakier than I thought. I was not sure how long I stood there staring after him, my heart in my throat, my body shaking. It had been more than a few minutes, though it felt like hours. "𝐸. Are you all right?" "Hardly." 𝐸 was staring at me from the other side of the frozen fountain, his warm brown eyes swimming in concern. I tried to force a reassuring smile on lips, though I'm sure it came out more like a grimace. "I'm fine, just weary and tired." Those all-seeing eyes of his continued to study me as he walked slowly around the fountain, stepping over the light dusting of snow on the earthy floor. "Have you eaten recently?" The smile that suddenly pulled at my lips was genuine, and I rolled my eyes. Of course, that would be the first conclusion he would jump to. "Yes, I am just tired." He stopped a few feet away, those dark yes not believing a word that slipped past my lip. "Then I will walk you to your room, and have a maid bring you up some food." He didn't let me protest as his arm wrapped around mine, and he began leading me towards the castle entrance of the garden, further away from 𝐴𝐴, if that was what I was to call him now. "Do you remember now?" I asked softly after the silence surrounding us grew deafening. His dark gaze snapped to the side of my face, his arm stiffening around mine before he glanced away. "Yes, but my time in existence is significantly far shorter than his. I do not have much to remember." He wanted me to forgive North completely. I could hear it in his voice, see it in the way his eyes pleaded at me. I looked away. "You are all the original generals." It was a question, but he nodded his head anyway and continued to lead me across the castle. "Yes, it is not hard to switch positions, to change names, to convince the people we live and die same as them. Even after we forgot why we could not age, it remained the same." The room I had been staying in came to view as he spoke. The bed calling softly to me was nearly as strong as my desire to listen to his words. "Turf and I are the only two who switch between second and third command. It is as he wants. The others change positions amongst themselves. I know Wolf, Borns have naturally longer lifespans than other shifters." "How long do you remain in one persona?" I asked softly once he pulled us to a stop outside my door. His free arm rose his shoulder in a shrug. He shot me a small smirk. "Whenever we get bored, or when North demands it. Usually every 100 years or so. Turf and I are actually due to change soon." His gaze turned thoughtful, his head cocking to the side as he stared off in the distance. "I wonder what name I will use next. I rather like 𝐴𝐴. "Me too." I grumbled as he pushed open my door and gestured inside. "What was your original name?" My curiosity asked as I released his arm and walked into the spacious room. He shot me a wide, brilliant smile, one that made the heaviness in my heart ease, one too long and obnoxious to ever pronounce. Maybe I'll just go by Turf and force him to think of a new one. He was teasing, if that amusement in his eyes was anything to go by. The light shatter worked, and I could feel another smile grace my lips. "Can you get him for me, please? I want to talk with him before I go to sleep." I mumbled as I sank into the low armchair beside the bed. The light in his eyes instantly disappeared. "My lady," he began softly, his arms crossing over his chest as he leaned heavily against the door. I could tell his next words were going to be a lecture, one I really was looking forward towards. "It has not gone unnoticed. Your dependency on him as of late, especially by the king. He understands why and is not intervening. But you must understand what. 𝐿𝐻𝐿. I snapped when he paused and gazed off into the barely lit room. Those dark eyes snapped back to mine and hardened. 𝐿𝐻𝐿 has a direct piece of 𝐿𝐻𝐿's soul inside him. You are pissed yet yearn for the king at the same time. You must understand the difference between relying on his general and wanting to be near that part of his soul. I opened my mouth to make some snarky comment about how ridiculous that was, but snapped it shut instead. Is that why I had been unwilling to allow him to leave my side these past few days? Am I only trying to be near the part of 𝐿𝐻𝐿 inside of him? I reached up and ran my fingers gently over the bump of the ruby hidden beneath my dress. I had not taken it off. No matter how much I had wanted to toss the thing from the top of the mountain. It thrummed against my palm. It was a part of him, a part of me. I could never throw it away, much less part with it. And whenever North was around, I did always feel better in Tariff's presence. I will still get him for you. But just remember Immerse. Regardless of the soul inside of him, he is still Tariff, his own being. Do not confuse him for North. He left with a small nod after that, without bothering to wait for my response. I did not confuse Tariff for North. I knew they were two completely different people. Just because I felt comforted in his presence did not mean I had forgotten who he was. He was Tariff 𝐿𝐻𝐿, the original wolf-born, and North's oldest friend. I jumped from the chair and rushed to the still open door. 𝐿𝐻𝐿, wait! I shouted at his quickly retreating back. He paused at the end of the hall and turned to raise an arch eyebrow at me. Don't bother him. I'm sure he needs to rest just as I. The smile that lit his face honestly made my head spin. I eased back into my room and closed the door. I didn't deserve to be comforted anyway. If I was going to put Adrianus through this torture, it would be cruel of me to not endure the same. I completely forgot that 𝐿𝐻𝐿 was going to send a maid up with some food. I was drained and tired. I shucked my heavy dress off and slipped into the large bed with just my shift. All would be better after some sleep. Amped true to his word, Adrianus did give me time. Days and days of time. I had not seen him since the garden, nor heard his voice in any hall. It was the beginning of my stay here all over again. Except it was I who demanded the distance this time. I was desperately starting to miss him. It had been 2 weeks since he said he would leave me alone. And it only took the first 2 days for me to realize I never wanted to be parted from him again. I would continue to be angry at him, because of my own pride. But I was done forcing us apart. I believed him, believed his story. I could not fault him for forgetting. This was not his world. It technically was even mine. And he tried so ridiculously hard. I saw it in his eyes. The pain he faced for centuries. Not only could he not find me, but he couldn't even hold on to his memories of me. Thinking of it now made me want to cry. How much time we wasted because of that war. Because of me. It was my fault I had been thrown from the skies. I knew that now. Remembered it. He had told me to stay in his palace. To not leave regardless of the temptation of the outside until he came back. I didn't listen to him. I had been so furious he had left, after I begged him not to. He did not listen to me. Why should I have listened to him? And my idiotic anger hurt us tremendously. For nearly a millennium. He fell for me. We could never go home because of me. I took that life from us, but he still loved me. Still gave me the space and time I needed despite being separated for 1,000 years. He was still my 𝐿𝐻𝐿, and I was a pathetic girl whinnying over the fact that he forgot me. I finally went looking for him when the second week ended. I waited around a few days to see if he would come looking for me. To demand my time was up and to get over myself, but he never did. I missed him so much it was starting to make me physically ill. But he was prideful too, and it didn't take too terribly long to realize he was waiting for me to go to him. I was halfway to his wing of the castle when the large general suddenly stepped into my path, golden eyes blazing. I nearly shrieked and stumbled backward. I had not seen him that mad since the caves. You have been avoiding me. Tariff spoke on a dark growl, his brow furrowed in an angered mask. I dropped my gaze to the ground and took a sudden extreme interest in my silk slippers peeking out beneath my dress. I wanted to be alone for a while. I mumbled to the ground, too embarrassed to meet his eyes. I had been avoiding him. Ever since 𝐿𝐲 accused me of using him for 𝐿𝐲𝐬𝐧. I had been far too ashamed to be around him. I didn't want to use him for that. I genuinely enjoyed his company. When he was that raging volcano of ever-changing emotions as he was now. He spent time with 𝐿𝐲𝐬𝐬. He brought food and forced me to eat it. I would not necessarily call that spending time with someone. Yes, but at least you did not completely turn down a different hall when you saw him coming. He instantly crawled up my neck at the snarled statement. I had not known he saw me do that. I thought you would be happy. I mean, all you have done since we met was complain that I annoy you. That's horse shit and you know it. I jumped at the vulgar words spewed from his lips, and my eyes snapped to his on their own accord. The gold there was bright, and more furious than I had imagined. He never cursed at me, much less spoke informally in any way. It threw me completely off guard. I'm sorry. I did not realize it would bother you so much. His anger did not fade, and the bright glow of his eyes did not either. There was silence between us for a long while. A tense, uncomfortable silence. I was just about to sidestep him and completely forget about the encounter when he spoke again. I know 𝐿𝐲𝐬𝐬 spoke to you. That pup doesn't know when to keep his mouth shut. The embarrassment from before reared its ugly head and I played absently with the ends of my dark hair so he cowled and see the red creep up my cheeks. He was only worried about you. I murmured down to my shoes that were so very interesting once again. I don't care. It's not his job. He took a heavy step away, his body angling towards the large oak railing on the top of the staircase we stood by. I wrung my hands together uncertainly. You knew? I asked carefully as those gold eyes gazed down the marble staircase. He scoffed and rolled his eyes before going back to gazing down the stairs. Of course I knew. He told me to stay close to you if it was what you wanted. Figured it would make you feel better. Adrianus knew I was trying to cling to the part of him inside 𝐿𝐲𝐬𝐬. For some reason that shot a surge of anger through me, though it disappeared as quickly as it came, and 𝐿𝐲𝐬𝐬 was feeling ashamed of using him. 𝐿𝐲𝐬𝐬 needs to learn to mind his own business. You think he would have learned that from you? 𝐿𝐲𝐬𝐬 coughed and rolled his eyes again, his arms crossing haughtily over his chest as his hip rested against the railing. His mother was in charge of that. I only cared about keeping him alive. He didn't miss a beat, which honestly surprised me, although I shouldn't have let it. Figures Adrianus would have told him I knew about the whole 𝐿𝐲𝐬𝐬 father-son thing. Some sick part of me just wanted to see if it surprised him. I had gotten too lost in my pouting to realize he had stepped away from the railing and began walking towards me until he was at my side. Do not avoid me. Immerse. I find myself needing your company more than I would like. I stood in stunned silence as he bent down and pressed a small kiss to the top of my head, then walked away like nothing had ever happened. I released the shocked breath I hadn't realized I was holding when I watched his large back turn down a different hall. These wolf-borns were going to kill me. Chapter 43. I went to his chambers first, only to find the room still destroyed and vacant. It was as if no one bothered to enter in the few weeks I had been avoiding the place. I bit my lip as my gaze washed over the debris and rubble. The gold power was far stronger than I could have ever imagined. I knew he was in the wings somewhere. I could feel that much. I quietly walked back into the hall, closing the heavy wood and door behind me. I would clean the room later. My fingertips ran softly across the stone wall of the hall as I walked slowly towards the back staircase, the one I refused to use since 𝐿𝐲𝐬𝐬 first led me up them. The door to my room was closed, the feeling in my chest pulling me towards it. He was still staying there. I knocked gently against the hardwood, but he did not answer. I frowned and leaned back to look out the large window running along the ceiling. The sky was dark, no moon or star in sight. My conversation with 𝐿𝐲𝐬𝐬 had gone on longer than I thought. I eased the door open just enough to cast a quick glance around. The room was nearly pitch black, no light entering from the windows. No candles lit to hold off the darkness. The only part I could see was revealed by the light filtering in from the hall. I opened the door a little further, flooding the room with as much light as possible. That pull in my chest was dragging me towards the large bed centered at the other end of the room. I debated leaving the door opened. I knew the room like the back of my hand and didn't need the light. But there was just something about not being able to see it all with him there that pulled at my stomach. It was an altogether uncomfortable feeling. I closed the door slowly behind me, my breath leading my lips in an icy chill. The room was cold. The fireplace left a band on the opposite side of the room. I walked slowly towards the bed, completely aware of the large presence laying on its other side. I stopped on the right, hands wringing together nervously. I could just barely make out his figure in the darkness of the room. The shape of him unmoving, although his deep, heavy breathing soothed the ache in my chest. I wore a thick, wool, dark green dress built for the winter weather of the north, not for sleeping. I was expecting for us to talk that night, not to find him in a dead sleep. I could have gone back to the room I was currently occupying, slip into my night dress and go to sleep alone. But I hadn't seen him in a fortnight, and he was so close. I let out a soft sigh and kicked the silk slippers from my feet. I doubted he would be mad if I slept beside him, and I was tired of the restless nights spent suffering from his absence. I carefully eased under the thick covers, trying to move as little as possible. I did not want to wake him. I immediately wanted to huff once I pulled the covers to my chin and rested my head against the cool pillow. It was hot. The thick fabric of the dress, multitude of covers, and the very large, very warm, male body sleeping a few feet away from me caused heat to radiate throughout the entire bed. I pushed the blankets down to my waist and breathed in the cool air. I could never sleep in the heat, but he was beside me for the first time in weeks and I refused to leave. I let out a deep breath and closed my eyes. Despite the heat caging around me, I felt calm for the first time in eons. I only needed him. Amp, a cold and welcomed chill rolling across my bare arms drew me from the deep sleep I had eventually fallen into. I shivered, my eyes squeezing shut at the unwanted cold, before a heavy warmth pressed against my skin and forced the chill away. My mind tried to ease back to its deep slumber, until a small movement behind me gained attention. I made a sleepy sound in the back of my throat, a yawn pulling at my lips as I tried to let out an ladylike stretch. That heavy warmth from before curled tighter around me, squishing my entire body against it. My eyes still closed. My lips went to pull into a small frown as I tried to stretch again. The warmth only tight and then pulled me back against the stony surface owner. My eyes blinked open. Early morning light drifted in through the large windows across the spacious room. Though it offered little comfort against the harsh bite of cold the unlit fireplace refused to ward off. My eyes flickered down to that heavy weight trapped tightly around my entire upper body. To very bare, very large, arms were caging me against an even bigger chest, one that let out a soft growl. Go back to sleep. That eyes' tired voice husked into my ear, his arms pulling me tighter against him as he tucked me into his chest, his chin resting against the top of my hair. I was all too aware of his solid chest pressed into my back, of the very warm, very bare skin wrapped around my own. Even his legs were tangled with mine. Then my eyes snapped wide open, my breath tearing from my lungs in a hard gasp. I was only in my shift, the very thin fabric, thin strapped, and very short shift one wears beneath day dresses. I knew I did not fall asleep in only this. His dark chuckle sounded in my ear, as if he knew exactly where my thoughts were heading. He broke out in sweat multiple times through the night, and had a hard time breathing. I did not want you suffering from excessive heat, he murmured against my hair, his voice still gruff with sleep and his arms unyielding. You should have woken me if you were that worried. I would have gone to put my night dress on. I grumbled as he rubbed his cheek against my hair. And disrupt your sleep? I think not. He grumbled this time, his hand bringing the covers further around us. But then you kept shivering and I feared you would catch cold. His arms tight and around me in emphasis. I rolled my eyes. You could have lit the fireplace. I preferred this option far more. Me too. But I refused to admit that out loud, though it didn't matter if I did or not. He knew I loved the embrace as much as he. You still do not have an excuse to unrest me. He let out a tired sigh but did not loosen his hold. I have every excuse. Every right. You were burning up in that dress. I worry for your health. And anyways, he grumbled and started to ease slightly away from me. I'm not some youngling trying to get under your skirts. You are mine as I am yours. You have no reason to feel embarrassed. He was pulling away from me, his warmth disappearing from my back, his legs untwining from mine. I latched onto his large arms as they started to pull away also. He paused, his body dwarfing my own. I started softly, unsure of what exactly to say. I just needed him to come back and hold me like that again. It was an embrace I never wanted to leave. I am not embarrassed, try again. He interrupted, though his body was slowly pressing back against mine. You are embarrassed, why? His voice held no sneer, or condescension, but gentle encouragement. I licked my lips and let my fingers run softly across the hard forearm wrapping back around me. It's not proper. He laughed then, the dark, rich sound rolling from his chest and filling the spacious room. It made heat flame my cheeks. He demands why I am embarrassed then laugh when I tell him. Why do I even bother? Immerse. My heart. He paused to laugh again, his amusement slowly dying down as those arms tucked me back into his chest. There was a time when neither of us wore a single thing to bed. And here you worry over your shift. His passing chuckle did nothing to hide the heat surging up the back of my neck and into my cheeks. I stayed absolutely silent, resisting the urge to bury my face in the pillow and never resurface as his chuckles finally died away. He let out a deep breath. You will remember everything in time, just as I. The stone helps. His arm left my waist so his large hand could grasp the thrumming red ruby. Keep it close to my heart. I teased softly as he brushed his thumb across its smooth surface before letting go. It pressed back against my chest, unable to hide behind the thin shift. He pressed a soft, barely there kiss to my shoulder. Yes, always. We soon fell into a comfortable silence, both our breathing as even as he once again tucked my head beneath his chin and tangled our legs. Being this close to him, wrapped in his body as I was, did funny things to my head. I could feel his ever touch, smell that dark wintry spice that seemed to rise thick in his veins. My eyes shut in pure bliss as I relished in his hold. This was what I needed, him an eternity of his embrace. Have you had all the time you needed? He asked softly what felt like hours later. The room still held a brisk chill, but the light from the windows grew as the sun rose higher in the sky. My eyes blinked open, my fingers slowly tracing the hard muscle of his arms. Yes, too much, though I kept that part to myself and, he urged softly, his lips dropping back to my nearly bare shoulder. Do you love me again? I rolled my eyes and did not bother trying to stop the scoff from passing my lips. I never stopped loving you, you giant buffoon. I was mad and felt betrayed. You hated me. I saw it in your eyes. I could hear the remorse in his voice, the need for my forgiveness, my acceptance. I leaned further back into him, his arms tight and in response. I could never hate you, no matter how ridiculously upset and angry you can make me. I will always love you, 𝐿𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐻. The 𝐿𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐻 had the desired effect. He made a very inhuman sound deep in his chest that rose to the back of his throat and buried his face into the crook of my neck. My Immerse. He seemed to murmur against my skin, his arm still cradling me tightly. I hesitated a moment, just a moment, before I let my hand reach up and rub against his dark hair. The deep, dark rumble that came from his chest at the action could have only been described as a purr. I felt my lips pulled into an amused smile. I never knew a wolf to purr. The thought that grew from that one struck me hard, but not in a necessarily bad way. You can change into more than a wolf, can't you? I asked softly as that gentle purring sound continued. I am the god of the moon. I can turn into any creature within my domain, but I prefer the wolf, always the most loyal. He grumbled against my neck. His arms positioned his hold on me. The sudden image of a large black owl slammed into my mind. An owl perched on top of Ixion's palace walls, its wide red eyes watching my every move as I walked the ancient halls. You were not all that happy when you found out that was me. His voice eased into the memory, gently pushing it away. You demanded if I had nothing better to do, then accused me of invading your privacy. I did not mean to. I was simply infatuated with you. You're in my head right now. I pointed out as his mind quite literally rubbed against mine. Sorry, he murmured sheepishly before burying his face back into my neck. I just wanted to know what you were remembering. Invading my privacy. He chuckled and did not deny it. A moment of silence passed. Just a brief one, before I started to pull away from him. He immediately tightened his hold on me, his chest vibrating with the growl rising to his throat. I just want to turn around. North. I tried to keep the amusement from my voice, though unsure he heard. His arms loose and barely a fraction. He made turning around a lot harder than it should have been. He refused to move more than he did. His legs would not detangle from mine, and their weight was near impossible to move. I huffed in exasperation before he finally let me go enough to flip around. Humor lit those blue eyes like lightning, and that smirk was sitting proudly on his lips as if he found my struggling amusing. You are impossible. I grumbled as his arms held me immobile again and he forced my leg to drape over his. And you are adorable. I MPH head and glared down at his stony chest, even though that embarrassment was back once again. I let my palms rest gently against his bare skin. My fingers splayed out over the muscles of his upper torso. He leaned into me, the smirk disappearing as his lips rubbed against my forehead. What do we do now? Adrianus, I asked softly as his arms rested against my waist, his warm breath fanning my skin. He knew what I meant without having to explain it. He usually always did. Now he started softly, his lips passing from my forehead to my still, heated cheek. Now we live the life we always should have. I willingly fell. They will not let me back. The heavens are not an option for us, but I will give you everything here. His hand was suddenly under my chin, angling my head towards his as his lips hovered barely a hair's breadth away. You'll be my queen. We will rule this kingdom as we should have from the beginning. Together. Forever. I whispered softly as his lips just barely brushed over mine. Forever. An eternity together. We are eternal. The words were spoken as a promise. An unyielding oath he sealed with a breathtaking kiss. One I had been dying for since he revealed he was Adrianus. Yes, we were eternal. And together we would never forget. The end.